and I am the Premier of the Golden Plains Shire Council. Tonight's council meeting is taking place within the well at Snisdale and is open to the public. This meeting is being live streamed in accordance with council's governance rules. I welcome any viewers joining us as the meeting is open to the public to attend. If the live stream ceases at any time, the meeting will continue. I'll now recite the opening declaration on behalf of myself and fellow councillors. We, the councillors of the Golden Plains Shire, declare that we will undertake on every occasion to carry out our duties in the best interests of the community, and that our conduct shall maintain the standards of good code of good governance, so that we may faithfully represent and uphold the trust placed in this council by the people of Golden Plains Shire. I'd now like to do the acknowledgement of country. Golden Plains Shire acknowledges the First Nations people and respects their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationships. Our shire spans the traditional lands of the Wadawurrung and Eastern Maar people. Council acknowledges them as traditional owners and custodians. We pay our respects to both elders, past, present and emerging. Council extends that respect to all First Nations people who are part of the Golden Plains Shire. Councillors, any apologies or requests for leave of absence? Councillor Rowe.
Yeah, a leave of absence from 26th of August 23 to the 3rd of October 23, inclusive.
Councillor's going to have a second for that motion request. Councillor Gibson, thank you. Councillors in favour? Carried. Councillors, we have a recommendation for us to confirm the minutes of the scheduled meeting of council that was held on the 27th of June 2023 as circulated. Can I please ask for a mover? Councillor Kirby. Can I please ask for a seconder? I'll now put this motion. Put the motion. All those in favour? Conflict of interests. Councillors, are there any declarations of conflict of interests? Well, thank you. Public question time. Public question time runs for 30 minutes prior to consideration of the formal agenda by council. We consider questions received with notice from the public. I'll call each person who has submitted a question forward. Please stand up and ask your question as it was submitted. I note question time is not an opportunity to make general statements or enter into debate with council and council officers. Can I please ask if Calvin Granger or Dean Helston are here tonight? No, thank you. A response to the residents will be provided by Director Gray, Corporate Services. Can I please ask if Beth Blatter is here tonight? No, thank you. A response will be provided by Director Pacific, Construction Environment. Can I please ask if Graham Turnbull is here tonight? Thank you, Graham. Graham, can I please ask you to read out your question, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
By the way, my name is Graham Turnbull. I'm the president of the Snisdale Progress Association and also one of the Snisdale Community Coordinators. Thank you for this opportunity to submit this question to council. I understand the master plan for the Snisdale Gardens and Brewery Dam is still to be accepted by council. The Snisdale Progress Association would like to ask the following question. If the plan is accepted, is there flexibility to change the focus and outcomes? And if the circumstances change, can we consult with the Shire? We, as the Progress Association, are very thankful for the work that has been provided by the consultants, and we believe the biggest factor in achieving this goal is with good communication between the parties. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good. Response will be provided by Director Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Mr. Turnbull has outlined, the draft master plan is being provided tonight to council for endorsement to go to public exhibition. Council will seek broader community feedback before the master plan is finalised and will be presented at a council meeting later this year for adoption. The master plan will assist the Snisdale Progress Association and community management and council to prioritise capital project upgrades, explore new opportunities to activate the reserves and increase recreational activity. The master plan will also provide a vehicle to advocate for grants and funding opportunities to support implementation. By their nature, master plans are not static and should be reviewed as circumstances change to determine whether any of the original goals and objectives have changed and whether the logic behind the proposed developments is still current. Changes to volunteers, planning laws and regulations over time are all factors that may initiate a comprehensive revision of the master plan. Once the master plan has been finalised, this will not prevent council from considering ideas, improvements that have not been included on the plan. If there is a strategic justification or demonstrated need, council will most certainly consider changes.
Thank you for your consideration. Council will now move on to item number 7.1, which is on page 6 of the agenda, business reports and decisions, citizen recognition award. Golden Valley Shire is proud to recognise the fantastic achievements and contributions made by the young people in our community. We are fortunate tonight to present the Citizen Recognition Award to Grace Crowe, who is being recognised for her achievement in support of athletics. Grace is 14 years of age, lives in Ross Creek, and commenced with athletics at the age of 8. Grace has been competing individually in relays since being in the under-9s at state level. And this year competed individually and in the relays at national level representing Victoria at the 2023 track and field championships held in Brisbane. Grace also competes for the Ballarat Harriers and for the Ballarat at state level individually and in relays. Grace, would like to come forward and we're going to give you an award, and if you like you can say a few words but you don't have to. Well done.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank all of you for recognising me and giving me this award. I really appreciate it, and Mum and Dad for supporting me. So thank you. Thank you.
Well done, Mum and Dad. Grace and family and members of the public, you're more than welcome to stay for our meeting tonight. However, we won't be offended if you choose to sneak out now. That's fine. Councillors will now move on to agenda item 7.2. Councillors, 7.2 is delegates report and informal meetings of councillors. I'm pleased to refer to page 7 for the recommendation of this report, which I take as read. Can I please have a mover of the recommendation? Councillor Campbell. Thank you. May I ask for a seconder? Councillor Gibson. Thank you. Councillor Campbell, would you like to speak to the motion, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I attended the Commonwealth Recreation Reserve funding announcement in Teesdale. I thank the State Labor member for Eureka and Kayla Settle for following through on this election commitment. And indeed, the Committee of Management members from the Footy, Cricket and Tennis clubs who over many years have lobbied for improvements with the sporting facilities of the ground. It's great to see a very healthy Auskick and junior numbers with the club there again, and many families. At the Golden Plains Farmers Market, I had the honour of drawing a raffle for the hamper prize. It was free to enter, but you had to have purchased something at the market. The basket was full with what looked like hundreds of entries. There's excellent live music as always. Thanks to customer service staff for representing council at the market. Last Friday, I attended the Creative and Cultural Mapping Survey in Meredith with our Arts Officer, Fiona Lee, and two consultants there as part of their State of the Shire survey. The consultants received a lot of valuable feedback about the current community groups and interest in the arts, cultural and heritage for Meredith and more broadly in the Shire, from car shows to aspirations to utilise the old Bannockburn Shire Hall as a shared showcase public space at the true heart of our Shire for many of our community groups and residents with a passionate interest in the Shire's history and creative endeavours. So there were quite a few ideas put forward in that respect, and they included the potential to include First Nations representation presentation and showcasing involvement in this profoundly uniquely public space, unequalled with the War Memorial, the historical building, and the strategic gateway type entrance to the Shire. I note the building is currently being offered by this council for expression of interest for a commercial lease, closing on the 15th of the 8th of 23. So community groups, if you've got an interest in things, it's up to you to get together and put a submission in. The Growing Places information sessions were well attended, both at Meredith and Lethbridge, with some good representation from sister city Teesdale, where I come from. And the planning officers and council are actively seeking feedback about the community's views and opinions on the nature and location of parts of Golden Shire to receive significant future population growth or density. The strategy has been funded with a $315,000 grant from the state government, and thank you and recognition of the importance of this planning work. Strategic growth, expert consultants used. At the engagement sessions, council strategic planners presented an overview of the process and findings, and likely options and opportunities and issues, with a lot of time afterwards for discussion. These opportunities and issues are both for the Shire overall, the big picture, and also for the local and the immediate town or towns in question, like where the engagement session is being held. So council is keen to receive feedback on the current proposed future growth plan. Relevant to the discussion was hope for a passenger train service for Meredith, recognition of significant increase in travel times in recent years. As also relevant as a council delegate and active participant, I note just yesterday the official release and media coverage of the G21 Integrated Transport Strategy, which I've participated in over the year. Significant is the reality that unless improvements are made to public transport, such as a train service for Bannockburn and Meredith Western Growth Area, and active transport such as an off-road rail trail connecting Bannockburn and Geelong's existing cycling networks, we're likely to see significant time delays and congestion to drive into Geelong, predicted to be congestion multiplied by about 5 times by 2040 around Geelong. So that strategy is featured on the G21 website.
Councillor Down.
Okay.
Councillor Getsworth.
Yes, I attended the Smilesdale Market just recently. Also attended last week the Timber Towns workshop in Melbourne, which was very constructive. The government have said that the timbers mills will close in 2030. They're now brought forward to next year, which is for a lot of people. We have about 7 operators in this area around Scarsdale, Bringa, Minton that operate. They'll be out of work. I don't know what they're going to do for the job, but you can't put gravel on top of timber jinkers. So there's a mill at Beaufort which is going to close. The Skipton Hospital, Beaufort Hospital, who we get state payers from our Shire, that is run by wood chips for heating. They will not have any further wood chips, so there's going to be a lot more trouble there. There's probably $20 million worth of equipment which is laying about Victoria, which will be wasted, no further use. And if you go up into the Bournemore, wherever the Gippsland, that area, all those roads up there are repaired by the timber mills, which take people to the snow. So we have tourists going from here, I know, up to the snow, so that they won't have any roads left. So the towns like Morwell, Yarram, Hayfield, and across to the southwest Victoria will become welfare towns. So it means that someone's got to find money to support those people. Thank you.
Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Kirby, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I'd just like to say that I attended the Rural Councils Victoria Forum in Echuca last week. One of the ideas was build back better. So that was just regarding what Echuca had gone through after the floods up there. We did have a walk and talk along the the Echuca River and the Murray River, and just seeing the impact that the floods had up there was just terrible. We can see the infrastructure falling apart. You might not realise that under the boardwalks, it's just coming away. It's really, really bad. So the theme is build back better. So if you're going to build something, whether it's in our shire, any shire in the state of Victoria, we need to build it back better. Fisheries Victoria were also there, and they are welcoming any communities around the state who would like to restock their reservoirs, dams, creeks with more fish to get in contact with them. They have an abundance of stock at the moment, so any, especially our communities, if you like restocking, just get in contact with the Shire. There was a lot of different groups who were speaking up at the forum as well. And one of the things that got me was they were talking about infrastructure and building back better. But one of the things was, why build extra infrastructure and towns when we have existing towns and villages ready to flourish? And that, I really thought that we have 56 communities in our shire at the moment. We're doing strategic planning, and we have got so many small towns and villages that would flourish because we just have the infrastructure there at the moment. And at the moment, we're also building and making sure that they're up to scratch, whether it's netball courts, football grounds, tennis courts, basketball courts. So we've got to make sure that we've got the room around our townships to make our council flourish. There were some other groups talking about different strategic planning that they're doing regarding more workforce in their communities. They had some really great ideas, but next year, when they have the next forum, I'd really like to see a little bit more in-depth come out of it. It's all right to have a speaker stand up and talk, but at the end of the day, we want to know why they're doing it, how they're doing it, what outcomes are they achieving. So I just think we would get a little bit more out of it if they could just bring that back to the table, especially after some of the newer councillors have been on council for 3 years now, so it's not their first time attending any of these forums, and I think that they would get a little bit more out of knowing what they could do for the future. I think that's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other councillors wish to speak to Councillor Whitfield? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. This month I attended the Growing Places Strategy Information Session at the Virgin Board Hall. This was one of 7 sessions across the Shire. I think they've been, but there were info sessions as well at Meredith and Lethbridge to follow. The Growing Places Strategy will come to Council for adoption after the public has provided feedback on it. The strategy is the combination of many layers of information that identifies the best future growth areas for the Shire. Because the strategy is so data-driven, it's compelling in its guidance for where future growth will best be placed. And the focus is on 10 years and beyond, so it doesn't impact current town structure plans. Yeah, it's a great piece of work from what I witnessed at the info session. It's been well received by the public. I also attended a VCAT hearing as an observer last week, which I would recommend if other councillors get the chance, they do so, just to have an appreciation of that next level of decision making. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? If not, I'll say a few words. It was a busy month with many meetings and events. Some of those have already been covered by fellow councillors, such as Councillor Kirby, Councillor Gamble, so I won't go over those, but just a couple of the main ones was earlier in the month we had the Federal Minister for Early Childhood and Education, Dr. Anne Alley, and MP Lydia Coke visited the Bannockburn Services Centre. The Minister spent around about an hour and a half meeting with and interacting with staff and children, and commended the efforts of staff in providing a quality care and education for children, and to the extremely important role that they play in the early years of child education. Council, as CEO myself in attendance, Council welcomes the federal government's investment in cheaper childcare for residents and families in our Shire. Also, I attended the recent official opening of the various multi-play space. Member for Eureka McCullough Settle was in attendance for the official opening ceremony. This is a great example of a community-driven project, in particular by a young local resident by the name of Harley Murphy. The project saw the upgrade of the existing skate park, developing of a new BMX track, a new play space, basketball tower, installation of pathways, seating, drinking fountain, landscaping and a shelter. So well done to everyone involved in this great community facility. Councillor Gamble, would you like to close?
Nothing further to add, thank you.
Thank you, councillors. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Councillors, then we go to agenda item 7.3, which is on page 9 of the agenda. In regards to Ross Creek Recreation Reserve Master Plan adoption, I'll take the report as read. Are there any questions to the applicable director? If not, can I ask for a mover for this recommendation? Councillor Gamble, thank you. May I ask for a seconder? Councillor Kirby, thank you. Councillor Gamble would like to speak to the motion, please.
Here we have a motion that we fully to adopt the master plan. Like, following on, we've got some other motions to endorse as documents to go out for further public consultation. But this is a finished document and a way forward for the Ross Creek community. I'm very complimentary about the process. I know the initial funds were actually allocated back in 2020-21 budget, so it's 3 years ago. It gives you an idea of how long the process takes to get a fully fledged master plan up into final form. As far as Ross Creek goes, I've witnessed and experienced firsthand the strong community interest in the Ross Creek Reserve. I've been the Ross Creek Land Care Group in particular, a very friendly bunch, and I've been for a walk around there with them and a guest at one of their functions there. It's also the master plan. It's right. The reserve is right next to the school, so it's got a double use there. And it's home to a range of community groups and clubs. I'm quoting from the agenda right in here, including the Ballarat Fire Brigade Cricket Club, the Ross Creek Community Coordinators, the Ross Creek Tennis Club, and the Ross Creek Land Care, all of which collectively represent the Ross Creek Recreation Reserve Committee of Management. I just know it has been expressed to me, as well as being very positive and commending this master plan for adoption. I would note, because it has been expressed to me by a few people in Ross Creek, that while there's great appreciation for the playground and hence walking trails in particular, but for teenagers, the nearest skate park is literally right down the road at Smythesdale, and it is quite a dangerous road. So it's been suggested that it would be a really good road to have a cycling or an off-road cycling trail on it. There's a 36-page attachment to the meeting minutes for people to read in detail the actual recommendations and how the plan will be implemented. So yeah, I'll vote yes with confidence. A good process was conducted, and thank the officers, consultants and community members and groups involved.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kirby, would like to speak to the motion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'd just like to thank the community for getting on board and bringing this master plan to fruition. Over the years, they've been a very passionate group. I've attended quite a few AGMs down there, and they're always looking for new ideas and new ways to improve their facilities. So I think overall, going forward, this will bring about a lot of advocacy for the different state, federal governments to be able to have some input and hopefully put some money into these facilities for the future. As Councillor Gamble said, the primary school is right next door, and in the last few months, last year, we've seen some fantastic improvements down there with the playground and the school and the recreation reserve being able to access both of them and share this facility. So I look forward to seeing more works come to fruition down there, and it'll be an exciting challenge going forward. And once again, as I said earlier before it went out to the public, I'd really like to see some of the teenagers get involved. And as Councillor Gamble said, you know, they're talking about skate parks and that now. And if there is anything that needs to change in the master plan, you know, the young ones can always come forward and put forward any suggestions that they might have. They might even want a little athletics track around the oval. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kirby. Any other councillors wishing to speak to the motion, please? Any councillors wishing to speak against the motion? If not, I'll ask Councillor Gamble to close.
Nothing further to
Thank you, councillors. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Agenda item 7.4 on page 15 of the agenda, Moorabool River Reserve Draft Master Plan endorsement for consultation. Councillors, I'll take the report as read. Are there any questions for the officer? Councillor Sharkey, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just with regards to the recommendation here, it is, the recommendation seems a little bit open-ended. Do we have a specific time on the actual public consultation in terms of the length of time the consultation is going, or when it's going to come back to us?
Can I ask Representative to please answer that question?
Yes, outlined in the report on page 18 under community engagement, and we acknowledge we didn't put in the recommendation, but we are proposing a 3-week consultation process between 26 July and 16 August, and that will include those various channels as under those dot points.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions, councillors? If not, can I ask for a councillor to move the motion, please? Councillor Sharkey, thank you.
Happy to.
Sorry, councillor, just need a
Sorry.
second. That's okay. Councillor Sharkey. Councillor Whitfield. Thank you, Councillor Sharkey.
Thank you very much. Yeah, happy to endorse this, and it's always we've got a couple of these here tonight, and obviously the previous item which shows master plan coming to fruition. It's quite a journey most of these go through, and I think myself and our previous councillors that are sitting here will have a strong appreciation for the amount of work that we did in the last term in terms of securing this space, getting the size of the space it is, but then now having the appreciation that this comes at a cost to council to have what we want, and we can't do any lobbying or we can't do anything without a master plan in place. So it is a huge document, this one. It has done a good job, I think, in creating that long-term vision and set out the strategic objectives of that area for the local community. But this is the most critical time for this when we go out to public consultation. We are going out for those 3 weeks to the public, and I do note then there's also an evening session there on Tuesday the 8th at the Batesford Community Hall to go down there. I know that was pretty well represented by councillors here and also the community when we went through that engagement process. So it's good to see some of the feedback there. Hopefully there's members of residents that acknowledge or note that we might have overlooked something else should be in there, but I do find it's strongly encouraging some of the feedback we've received there in terms of keeping that strong Aboriginal connection there with the communications that we've had with the Wellerong community. So it is a very strong document. It's a very in-depth document. I know I brought up the briefing, and into the future I personally would love to, considering we've done so much work with these, I really would like to see these as standalone items on briefing days and really sort of spend an hour going over these documents and having a presentation from the people who paid to put these presentations together, just to get a stronger understanding of these documents. So I appreciate that, and thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sharkey. Councillor Whitfield would like to speak to the motion, please.
I will, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Well said by Councillor Sharkey. I might double up on a couple of his points there, but these master plans they do enable council to work towards achievable, manageable goals. This one is going out for consultation for 3 weeks, and when it is finally adopted, it does allow council to allocate resources and funding towards the actions that it highlights. And in there are actions such as adopting a Wathaurong name for the reserve, improving walking and maintenance of vehicle access, allowing dog on lead areas only to reduce impacts on native animals, establishing small picnic and seating areas with nature-based play spaces, strengthening the habitat corridor along the riverbank, allowing for future pedestrian bridge link into the Western Growth area when it's developed, establishing interpretive signs at key locations, conducting annual arborist assessments to address tree risks, and installing flood depth markers at risk points on the access tracks. As Councillor Sharkey said, it's been compiled through extensive background information, community and stakeholder feedback, and council officer input to define and guide the future management of the reserve. I did attend the Batesford Hall gathering that Councillor Sharkey spoke about, and it's easy to tell when you read this plan that the input from those community members has been reflected in this draft. And the plan also has significant input from the Wathaurong, and cultural significance and protection is woven throughout the plan. It'll be delivered over a 5-year period, and external funding will be sourced where possible for infrastructure items such as play space, seating and interpretive signs. And I think it is worth recognising that the councillors Kirby, Sharkey and Rowe from the previous council did make a decision to increase the size. I think it was from originally about 7 hectares up to what it is now, 17. So that's a great saving there for that particular piece of the environment. Yeah, and I look forward to seeing any further feedback coming from the draft from the public. Thanks. Thank you, Councillor.
Are there any other councillors who may wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Gamble, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, the aim of this is to receive strategic direction for the management and development of the reserve. And that said, as part of a larger master plan, the Kitjara Jarbor Bulletu Langi Ut, which is a plan for basically the river areas right up from right along the Moorabool, a much more bigger and encompassing plan involving the City of Geelong and us as well. So it's a really important area to protect and conserve as best as possible, because the area will be coming under increasing pressures, and value with adjoining high density growth developments planned for the Geelong side of the river, Geelong part. I think it will become sort of more like a highly valued green-blue wedge in the area, and it will define the special character of living in the Golden Plains this side of the river. There are those who've, yeah, I'll read that comment, but as mentioned already, there's been extensive community consultation, including my personal experience of the official handover of the land on the developers. Do you see the name? Yeah, Ramsey Corporation. That should be acknowledged that they were involved in this visionary project for the area. And there has been, I also attended 2 of the really excellent walks in country with a great mix of local community members and some of the most knowledgeable and expert people in the field of guiding such planning. The walks were held prior to the consultation meeting, which Councillor Whitfield and Sharkey mentioned, and all Batesford residents received individual household mail notification from Henry. So it was it's council's done its best to involve the community in the planning and the engagement aspect of it. I'd particularly like to compliment Dale Smithyman and his role in overseeing, facilitating and caring for as much as he can, not just this part of our shire, but much other environmentally rich open space in all of Golden Plains and other parts around Batesford. So, yeah, in conclusion, I endorse and support and commend the Moorabool River Master Plan to the public for further consideration and submissions.
Thank you, Councillor Gamble. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Kirby, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'd just like to thank the original land care groups that came on board with us when we went to the initial walks, and they were very passionate about that area, and I think that's why we had the idea of increasing the amount of land that we could receive from the developer. We know that they were talking about protection and biodiversity of the land around there, but we also have to be mindful too that it is in a flood-prone area. So some of the things that the goals that have been identified in the life of the plan will include awareness of the heritage values and also improve public access and provide the low-key climate resilient recreation facilities. So we know it's not going to be an area where we're probably going to have a foreground and that sort of thing, but just to enhance and have a beautiful place where children and families can go and picnic and really appreciate the value of the Moorabool River. So I look forward to this going out to the public, and I know that the community groups down there will be very they'll be really coming forward with some great ideas and initiatives to get this piece of land up and going. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any councillors wishing to speak against the motion? If not, I'll ask Councillor Sharkey to close.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I was going to add comment to Councillor Gamble here as well with regards to Dale Smith, who has put a huge amount of passion into this report, but also has gone down there on early Sunday morning, walked the community around there and done a great job and passionately done so. Also, with this, having said before that it's just such a long journey that we go on, this is all good and well, but in my personal opinion, you know, if we did have somebody, a developer that was in this area that was truly passionate about the area and leaving a long-term legacy, this is something that, in my opinion, a developer that is making millions upon millions upon millions of dollars should be able to put this master plan together that cost many years ago, and we should be now 3 or 4 years into this and bring this to the community. We got handed this last year. We're putting the master plan. In my opinion, we're behind the eight ball. It would be great to see developers being passionate about the area, leaving a legacy, an honest legacy to the area, and putting these plans in place. And make no mistake, this Moorabool River has been council-led. It has been passionate community people who have brought it to this point here, and nobody else. Community, it's officers and us councillors that have got this to this point here, and nobody else. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Sharkey. On that note, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Agenda item 7.5, Lifestyle Gardens Brewery Dam Reserve Draft Master Plan, endorsed for consultation. Agenda page 20, I'll take the report as read. Are there any questions to the applicable officer? If not, can I please ask for a move for this recommendation? Councillor Whitfield, can I have a seconder? Councillor Kirby, thank you. Councillor Whitfield, would you like to speak to the motion, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to move that council endorse this draft master plan to go out for public consultation. As we've just heard from the previous items, master plans assist with the prioritisation of projects. They enable decisions about investment and support advocacy and opportunities to seek external funding. Master plans provide a strong evidence base as they require extensive consultation and site-specific planning. After consultation with the user groups and the stakeholders in this case, the following actions have been identified. For the Smythedale Gardens, to implement arborist assessment recommendations and develop a tree replacement strategy. restrict access and revegetate overland drainage areas and prevent vehicle bogging, upgrade internal roads and improve drainage, add additional historic signage, and upgrade the main entrance to provide safer access for vehicles with caravans. And then for the Brewery Dam, the actions are to undertake drainage assessment and address the flooding over the weir of the dam during storm events, upgrade existing entrance signage, and install appropriate safety signage and barriers. And as we heard during the question time, Mr. Mayor, there is the opportunity for further submissions on this master plan during the public consultation phase. And the plan, after it is endorsed, will go through review periods. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr, you'd like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, once again, we know the Smythedale community is very passionate about these two pieces of land that they manage. We know that they've been trying hard to get the Brewery Dam up and going and have it as a beautiful feature for their town. The problem is, in a lot of small towns, as we know around Shire, we really lack signage. So this is one of the main areas. You know, if you want your locals to know, probably half the people in Smythedale don't even know that this dam exists. So we've got to get signage and make it a lot better, not just with Smythedale, but across the whole Shire. But historic signage as well. That's another major feature that we need to do. We need to get better at this. So I just hope that all the residents come on board, really push for what they would like in their town. And I know us councillors, you know, will be 100% behind them. So get out there and have a say and make sure you put a lot of input into this. Thank you.
That's very. The other councillors wish to speak to the motion. Councillor Gamble, thank you.
Yeah, they're two very different reserves, but they're both drawn together here because they share the same management committee, the Smythedale Progress Association, which should be commended for taking on the committee of management responsibilities for both these areas. The Smythedale Gardens is one of our most popular tourism locations, particularly popular with green nomads and stopovers, even though it's unpowered. It has potential for further development later on, I believe, with maybe developed into a more formal power camping site. It has the advantage being in the Ballarat Skip and Rail Trail, so I believe it's got a lot of potential, particularly if we have the Goldfields World Heritage Tourism venture comes through. Take a while, but that has great potential for bikepacking tourism, in my opinion. And but that's also part of high value tourism where people buy food, they eat out, they slower moving through, they want a place to stay and have a shower, etc. And maybe even recharge their electric bike batteries. So I could also see it as part of a wider vision for the area with capacity to head down the Rainbow Bird Trail and potentially even getting into the Otways and the Great Ocean Road. Yeah, it's quite interesting that there probably was a brewery there, and the history back in the day prior to pasteurisation, beer was made locally and often the safer bet to drink than water. So yeah, so the dam's still there anyway. And I think this master plan will see some great improvements on both sides, as outlined in the agenda and in the attachment. And so, yeah, I endorse and support and commend the Smythedale Gardens and Brewery Dam draft master plan. Thank you.
Any councillors wish to speak against the motion? If not, I'll ask Councillor Phil to close.
No, nothing further to add.
Thank you, Councillor Phil. Councillors, I'll put the motion to vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Agenda item 7.6 in regards to draft G21 regional football, in brackets, soccer strategy. Councillors, I refer you to page 26 of the recommendation for this report, which I'll take as read. Are there any questions for the applicable director? If not, can I please ask for a councillor to move this motion? Councillor.
Can I just have just a clarification here, sorry. I know that, let's see, we're removing references to the centre wicket at the Bannerton Soccer facility as there is not one. But can we also have that removed because it also in the report mentioned the Commonwealth Games. So is there a part there that we could also mention that even though the Commonwealth Games is not going ahead, maybe we could fight for some more funding within our Shire?
Happy to raise that as conversation through our manager back in.
Because in the report it does state to upgrade some of these facilities for the Commonwealth Games. So I just thought that it's not going to go ahead now. So it really needs to be deleted out of this G21 strategy.
We'll raise it.
All right, well, I'll leave it and for now, and then it's just something we can follow up. Thank you.
Council, can I move this recommendation? Councillor Whitfield, may I please ask for a seconder? Councillor Kirby. Councillor Whitfield, would you like to speak to the motion, please?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll move the recommendation as the motion. So this draft regional strategy is going out for public exhibition for a 6-week period. The draft G21 regional football strategy aims to guide the future planning and development of football, as some of us know it as soccer, throughout the G21 region for the next 10 years. It's an initiative of Football Victoria and the G21 Sport and Recreation Pillar, and it's been informed by facilities audit, participation data, and the collaboration and engagement of stakeholders in the G21 region, including the 5 participating councils. The draft document highlights key findings, current trends and strategic priorities for football throughout the G21 region, including the Golden Plains Shire. Golden Plains has been identified for as one that would require another soccer facility. This draft strategy is very timely with the World Cup currently underway, and I think we can assume there will be a spike in participation for soccer, particularly for girls and women's soccer following the World Cup. I did catch the opening game against Ireland, and I thought it was absolutely riveting, high-class soccer. So go the Matildas, and well done on G21 putting up a worthy strategy. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Kirby, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I think so far we've done very well at providing some really good soccer facilities in Bannockburn. In this report does highlight that the second one will be needed in the Shire, and I think it just depends on who comes on board from the different communities and who'd like to step up to actually run a soccer club. The girls and women down there at Bannockburn at the moment, they're flourishing, they're going so well, the juniors are going so well, and with the numbers in the report, we have one, the growing numbers in the sport is just, just jumping out of the ballpark, so you can understand why they're wanting, looking at having a second club. I'd also like to mention too that in the report it also states that there should be some more indoor futsal and that sort of thing, more indoor sports going on in the soccer space as well. So we have a lot of indoor arenas around the Shire, and there's no excuse that a lot of other small clubs couldn't get on board, or community groups coordinators, and start running a few of these programs in the school halls, the school gymnasiums, the council's facilities that we have out there now. So I really look forward to seeing what comes out of the strategy. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kirby. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak to this motion? Any councillors wish to? Councillor Campbell, thank you. Speak to the motion.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate this as a somewhat aspirational document with a lot of proposals, and it's going out for consultation at this stage for exhibition. And on the one hand, there are great positives, like Councillor Whitfield has mentioned, with organised sport such as this, and I do acknowledge that the soccer provides an alternative and highly credentialed sport for people in our shire, and it's very popular internationally. But I just have a caveat that if this strategy was to be implemented in full, like on page 27, there's a list there of council responsibilities to deliver. And if this strategy was to go full forward, then whilst appreciating it's aspirational, I just question whether it is the right thing to do for the overall community. There's so much of the limited money going into a organised sport such as this. On the other hand, that money could be used, we don't have a single off-road cycling trail outside of township zone in the whole south of the Shire, for example. Many citizens in our community just want to have a safe walking trail around their local community or even on their local street. And here I'm thinking of places like Shelford and Batesford with its fast curving roads and large open drains, Red Gum Drive, Teesdale, Police Paddocks and Meredith. And there's an inability for kids to connect into towns without relying on their parents. Particularly during the years of the pandemic, then we've seen a much greater upsurge in people.
One more, Mr. Mayor, we're going well on track here. I appreciate some of those comments, but it's not in relation to the motion.
It's a sport strategy up for exhibition.
I know, but
Councillor Sharp, take it to the floor. Councillor Campbell, can I please ask you this?
Okay, I'll just restore it then.
Thank you.
I'll just point out the recent Tracks and Trails engagement saw 197 online submissions, and that should be noted. In
Point of order,
context.
Mr. Mayor, it's grandstand.
Okay, well, I believe we have to focus more on general township enhancements, community wellbeing and connections. Thank you.
Any councillors wishing to speak to the motion? Any councillors wishing to speak against the motion? If not, I'll ask Councillor Whitfield to close.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I would just add that the draft strategy, through its research and consultation, participants filled out surveys and they identified our current facilities with the highest rating of the survey. So that particularly the Bannockburn Soccer Club and pitches there rated extremely well across the 5 participating G21 councils. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Council, now put this motion vote. All those in favour? Carried. Agenda item 7.7, subdivisions road naming policy adoption of. I'll refer councillors to page 32 of the recommendation report. I'll take the report as read. Are there any questions to the applicable director regarding this item? Councillor Kirby.
Yes, thank you. Just when we have large developments, we don't seem to have them come to the table. So I'm just wondering why, when we might have a street, a one-off street name, but not when it comes to a full development. Why doesn't that come to council?
So the technical reason is that street names are approved as part of the plan of subdivision. Subdivisions are approved, the plan of subdivisions are approved under delegation because the plan of subdivision is in accordance with the broader planning permit that will have been through a council process often. What this policy and procedure is proposing to do is to do that work up front in terms of providing a list of approved names for developers to be able to call upon when they are naming their roads within their subdivision, or when they're nominating names for roads within their subdivision. That list will have been pre-approved by council. So what this policy and procedure aims to do is set up a process by which the officers would go and do some engagement with First Nations groups, other local groups, history groups, consider flora and fauna and so forth, and come up with an approved list of names that reflect the relevant history and character of local areas. And then that would serve as a reference for developers to go. If officers are then confident that the names selected and shown on the plan of subdivision have come from that approved list, then those subdivisions, complete with the street names, can be approved under delegation in the normal way.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Any other questions or councillors? If not, can I please ask for a move question or
Oh, I have
have you moved? Thank you, Councillor Sharkey. Can I have a second to move the motion? Councillor Litchfield, Councillor Sharkey, would you like to speak to the motion, please?
Yeah, thank you very much. This is a nice little document. This one, for those that don't recall how this one came about off a resident that put in a question to council. I think I raised it at a meeting or briefing, and we came up with this document. So it's nice. This document perfectly answers Councillor Kirby's earlier question in terms of having a register put there. So residents, typically what we've seen in the past is residents that may be doing a little subdivision or there's a street name, they want that street named after their family and that. But this register gives the rights to anyone in the Shire that may not be developed, may not be there, but want to leave a long legacy for their family or family name or something that's indigenous to the area. So people can go through this process, register on this, and hopefully at the end of that we'll see a good long list of names that represent historical values and reasons and rationales for the area, and hopefully then, as the document report states there, that officers will then encourage developers to use this register and prior to lodging new roads request. So it's nice. It's just a small little document there. I know we have the document there showing how residents can fill that out. This is a good way of trusting that history is kept in our area, and I think so that's our resident that sent in that email, who'll be very happy to see this being adopted here tonight. And the many other residents over the years that have asked the question, can I name this street Smith Street or whatever? And that generally happens when it's too late, where this is getting ahead of the 8 ball, and I think we'll see a really nice outcome out of this really nice document.
Thank you, Councillor Sharkey. Thank you. Councillor Whitfield, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'll just touch on a couple of things that Councillor Sharkey hasn't, but so the consultation that was mentioned that's going to occur when developing this register of names and themes, mentioned by Director Sagona, will consult with not just Indigenous people, but historical societies and other community groups. And that will enable the list of usable names to come from the 13 principles that are outlined in this policy. So they'll be ensuring there are no duplicates, that we can use commemorative names and names linking to place, names that have recognition of traditional owner language, etc. It basically will provide greater clarity and guidance for naming of the new roads. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors wishing to speak to the motion? Councillor Campbell, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I also highly commend and support this excellent policy. It makes great sense, as Councillor Whitfield expressed. I'll refer councillors and the general public to page 32, background and discussion, and to get a better understanding. It's very well written report, I believe, and includes sentences such as, Council has identified the opportunity to collaborate with traditional owners and the community to generate recommendations and themes for proposed road names. Following the adoption of the policy procedure, consultation will commence with local First Peoples, historical societies and other community groups. So the it's replacing a current procedure which relies on a statutory requirements from 2022. But I would say it also reflects a more general change in our community and society, where First Nations people are being given and need to be given respect and acknowledgement and a special place in our culture as the first Australians by about 58,000 years or so. It also reflects the significance and importance of power of language and names, and to try and recover as much of our Indigenous knowledge and history, as well as acknowledging more current histories and significant people and events in our community too. I remember at the MAB annual forum last year, I can't remember the name of the Aboriginal woman, professor, who was pleading and beseeching the councillors the importance of recovering and capturing as much local Indigenous knowledge and names as possible in the community. And this policy does just that. So well done to the officers. Thank you.
Councillor Sharkey, would like to come. Councillor Kirby, sorry, my apologies, Councillor Kirby.
That's all right, thank you. Just thinking about the way this report's being done, I'd really like to see council have a heritage register regarding the names. And so whether it's some sort of website or something for the future, because we can drive along, see a name and we think, oh, what's that name represent? Whereas if we could go have a nap or something, go or contact council and say, why has my chosen street name, who is it named after, why? It'd really be good to bring all that heritage together. So that's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Councillor Sharkey, would you like to close?
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think this policy put together will sort of in part do that, Councillor Kirby, that part of the reasons and rationales for some of these names, Indigenous names or themes, will come back for reasons. So if a resident did want to find that out, they can get in touch with council and find out through this why that name came about. But positive comments all around, really nice documents, and it's going to have a lasting impact. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Sharkey. Council, I'll put this motion to vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Councillors, agenda item 7.8, Community Satisfaction Survey, January 2023 report findings. I'll refer councillors to page 35 for recommendations to report, and I'll take the report as read. Councillors, are there any questions to the applicable officers? Councillor Kirby, thank you.
Thank you. Just following on from this report, I'm wondering when some of the ideas and recommendations are going to come forth for the community, so we know how we can improve on the satisfaction survey. So we just need to know what we're going to do to improve it and when it's going to be documented out there to the community.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to respond. Obviously, we've provided the full of the reports to councillors who've seen the complete survey, the individual questions that we ask over the bottom, responses from the residents. Each year we go through them and analyze them and see what, if anything, we can do to make a difference moving forward. You know, in years gone by, these surveys have transitioned into the development of a rural roads charter. We've looked at increasing levels of service by way of additional staff and plant in some particular areas, again, roads and drains. So we do take on board what's in there and look to what we can possibly do within the constraints that we have, and then bring that back to council each year through the budgetary process. But in saying that, I think a number of the staff in the engineering area are reviewing those and analyzing a lot of the verbatim, so the verbal comments, not just the how do you rate, but what are your comments, to see what else we can do. And we're having to bring a report back to a future briefing to continue to have that conversation with council.
Thank you. Is there anything else you would like to add to that?
Thank you. Answering that, So it's fully support what CEO Presley has said, and we will come back to council with some more information once we've collectively gone through the debate comments as well as the presentation that we had from the survey organisation, and provide some further detail on what other initiatives that we propose, which will also feed into the updates in relation to budget, etc. throughout the year. And as council will be fully aware, the focus for the budget this year was on the additional drainage initiatives. So this will be over and above, but in support of those initiatives as well.
Thank you very much. CEO.
Councillors, can I please have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Gamble.
Could I please move an alternative motion?
So,
Which I've circulated to councillors on the email, which they can get it from earlier, but half an hour ago or so. But it's quite simple. Looking at the motion there for item 7.81, my alternative motion is that it all stays the same, but with the addition of the fourth point as follows. So point 4 to be added to the recommendation to request the report be brought to a future councillor briefing to consider actions to improve the most significant areas of concern.
thank you. Councillors, do we have a seconder for the alternative motion? Councillor Whitfield, thank you. Councillor Gamble, I'd like to speak to your alternative motion.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's just that I think it's important that we make clear to the community that we are taking this the survey results findings seriously, and as a councillor, I feel responsible to acknowledge and understand the residents' issues and complaints as best as I can, and to seek for more explanations and understanding. I think we could have more conversations about it at the council level to, as it says, to consider what we can do to address these issues that are very important and reflected in the not so good survey results here.
Thank you. Councillor Whitfield, would like to speak to the alternative motion.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, the alternative motion doesn't change the intent of the original motion. It just adds to it, and as Councillor Gamble said, it just illustrates to the public that we're going to work on improvement strategies coming out of this survey. So if I reflect on some of the survey results, one could say they don't look very flattering, and we would need to investigate why. Some of the results are at odds to what I've seen. So council has never invested more into roads, both sealed and unsealed, yet the satisfaction level with them is below the state average. And I even think perhaps the flood events that occurred just prior to when this survey took place might have had something to do with the survey responses, because we did have hundreds of survey requests for roads that it was not possible for council to attend them all in the usual timeframes. So I believe that might have played on people's minds at the time. Questions been raised, how is council making improvements in this area? Council's recently changed material it uses on unsealed roads away from the Sago Hill material, which we know was problematic, and it's moving now to a much sturdier material. This new material is being implemented as per the road schedule, and it compacts and binds together much better than the last. So it is getting rolled out, but not all at once. So I can imagine that as the next survey results come in, more and more people will have seen this new material being applied to the unsealed roads, and we will get and they will reflect a greater satisfaction in the survey. I actually by pure coincidence, 2 days ago, I received a compliment from a resident who lives on an unsealed road. They had some new material put down for them. They commented on how it's holding up better, and they were very appreciative. So I'm passing that on to the infrastructure department. Also, in other results there, I was quite surprised that lobbying is down for satisfaction, and I know this is a strength of our organisation. Trying to fathom why. Once again, I said when the survey was done, it was not long after an election where government spending was reduced due to their need to have some debt reduction resulting from COVID. The Golden Plains at the time when we were lobbying, the usual funding commitments for projects were half of what we expected, so perhaps the residents have seen some of that. On the positives, a couple more seconds, Mr. Mayor. On the positives, the customer service numbers are good. Well done to the customer service team. Satisfaction with waste services has improved. It's interesting that in 5 categories, the residents of the Northwest provided the highest satisfaction, which indicates maybe the work being done in our smaller towns up here to the northwest is resonating with the residents. We have also had positive response from the over 65 demographic, which is very pleasing. But clearly, according to this survey, council has areas to improve on, sealed and unsealed roads being at the top of that list. Thanks.
Any other councillors wish to speak to the term motion? Councillor Sharkey, thank you.
Thanks very much. I know broad criticism in previous years by knocking this survey because it does come at a cost to us as a council, $40,000-$50,000 that's sitting on councils over Victoria. There is 5 firms getting paid to put these together, and to the tune of millions and millions of dollars. It is one of the poorest community satisfaction surveys that's done of all the information we get as councillors. In my opinion, this is one of the poorest because it's just a snapshot. It is just a snapshot on a specific day. I appreciate that going forward, part 2 there, the recommendation is that we're going to do, instead of doing 400 people in 1 week, we're now going to do them over the year, which may help, but each and every year the goalposts get moved and everyone hopes that the figures will be a little bit better. But they're not. I know it was a very strong sentiment by during the last election about the satisfaction results of the previous council. I hope that people get a true appreciation of how difficult, and we shouldn't be putting all our time and effort in moving all the goalposts just on this. We know when we speak to residents that roads are an area of major concern. We didn't need this report to find out that. We know that lobbying has been a strong point. We don't need to put all our attention into this survey. But having said that, there is parts of the survey, on average across the state, the numbers have gone down about 5% on the survey. We've gone down 15%. So there is a little bit of a look there, why are we dropping more than the average? But to sit there and put this as the Holy Bible there and say we've got to shift everything towards this, in my opinion, is a waste of time. There's so many other documents in front of us, and the community tell us, and you just walk down the street and you'll learn all of that and more in 10 minutes, and you don't need to be told by some person that's done 400 phone calls. It's just a poor waste of money, in my opinion, and it's imposed in legislation by the state government on us. You don't see the state government doing these surveys across the country or at national level. So it's just, in my opinion, a poor waste of time. There's bits in there. There's bits in there we can take, but to leave that, put all our duties and that around that is pretty poor, in my opinion. But I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Sharkey. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Kirby, thank you.
Thank you. Yes. I probably don't quite agree with Councillor Sharkey. I think these surveys give us the data of what the residents are thinking. Yes, they did survey 400 residents, and yes, it was right before we had the floods. But just after we had the floods. But the point is, if we don't have this data, we don't know what's going on in the minds of our residents. We don't always hear from them. If someone picks up the phone, they're quite happy to talk to someone in a survey. I know I've done it many a times. Not about our shy, because I've always told them that I'm a counsellor, but you know, we just need to know the facts and figures. So for a couple of examples, here we are hearing that we have the lowest satisfaction throughout the centre of the Shire. This is the second time running. What have we done to improve that figure? We have now dropped down to 36% in the Shire. That's not good enough. Yet we're hearing that the younger ones, they're actually enjoying what they're getting, you know, for their money in the Shire. So how are we going to improve? What are we going to improve the life and the livability of these people who live in the centre of the Shire? Now, I'm not just talking about where I live, and I'm talking about Dreal, Napoleon, Ross Creek, Garibaldi. There's a whole centre of the Shire. We have Windhill behind us, so there's so many areas that we've got to look at, and some of these are rural areas. Also, when I look at this survey, you know, it tells us about sealed local roads of concern. Okay, it's telling us that Bannockburn, that Burnside Road, you know, 6 people, you know, it needs attention. It might say Lacey's Road in Ross Creek, there's 4 people who are concerned about that. But when you get down the bottom of that graph, it is telling us that there's 53 people who are concerned about all roads in general. Now that speaks numbers to me. 53 people are saying that they are very concerned with all with the roads in the Shire. So I think at the end of the day, this is where we need to come together as a council, you know, make some good headway. Let's see what we're going to do to improve that, take it on board what the comments have come back from these residents in the survey, and I think it's just a good way of us moving forward. Yes, we know that in the next 12 months, they're going to start doing these phone rounds in a quarterly interval. So it's not going to be at the same time when there might be a heat wave or a drought or a flood. You know, it's going to share the load around the Shire a lot more. So we will get better facts, figures and data numbers. But, you know, to be honest, when I see numbers like that, you know, that are concerned about roads, even though we have done so much work in this space, if you don't live on a good sealed road, you're going to be the first one to complain. Or I'm going to complain every time I drive down the Vic Roads road and complain because there's the biggest potholes that haven't been fixed for the last 6 months. So people don't always recognise our roads as belonging to Vic Roads. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor, any councillor wishing to speak against the motion? If not, I'll ask Councillor Gamble to close.
Thank you, Mayor. In regard to Councillor Sharkey's doubts about the value of the survey, I think we all need to recognise it was a professionally conducted survey that also provides direct comparisons with like councils to our own. Also councils that receive major flood events and the same weather patterns that we did. So I think this, and relative to these other councils, there is a greater perception. Whether it reflects reality or not, we need to understand that to have more information about it, and to better understand, to focus on the areas of concern. I think it's important we don't just explain away this disappointing data, that we, despite the mitigating circumstances, but like I said, other LGAs also have the same conditions. I think we need to understand perception and to seek further information, to do the best we can by the residents who have identified these issues in particular, and to mark the trend that this survey indicates of a worsening perception. So in order to seek the best understanding, yeah, that's why I recommend this alternative motion.
Okay. Council, now the alternative motion to vote. All those in favour? carried. Thank you. Councillors, we move on to 7.9 of the agenda, which is rehabilitation of Federation Bridge in Belize. Agenda page number 44. I'll refer councillors to that page for the recommendation of this report, which I'll take as read. Are there any questions, councillors, to the applicable director? If not, can I please ask for a mover for this recommendation? Councillor Whitfield, thank you. Can I please ask for a seconder? Councillor Getson, thank you. Councillor Whitfield, would you like to speak to the motion, please?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll move the recommendation as a motion. Federation Bridge in Inverleigh has been both an attraction and a valuable connection between the north and south of Inverleigh since its installation almost 25 years ago. Thanks to the Open Space Committee that maintained that river area. In particular, I want to mention Tony Rayner, who originally identified the need for Federation Bridge and sourced funding for it. 25 years ago, it was probably seen as a nice to have, but with the expanding population to the north of the river, it's become a critical link for children's access to the primary school, for residents to access the main street, and is an integral nexus for the north and south river walks. The existing bridge is a single-span cable suspension pedestrian walkway, and I and many others find it aesthetically pleasing in its picturesque surroundings, and it is sad that the combination of flood damage and some infrequent maintenance has led to its current state. It was built with a 25-year lifespan, and while efforts have been made to extend that, the flood events of last October, November contributed to it being closed since January, when a damage assessment was conducted. The engineer's report recommendations from Aussie Bridges are that this structure should be replaced as a more cost-effective and suitable option rather than repairs and or upgrades, and the bridge should remain closed to the public until repairs and or replacement has been completed. The report details the extent of repairs needed, and as the dismantling of the bottom suspension cables to replace the damaged cross beams that support the deck is required, it would be prudent to replace all cross beams. Effectively, this work triggers the bridge's replacement to current standard. The report says the deck needs replacing and the cables need replacing due to corrosion at the anchor points. All this leads to the cost of repairs in most options outweighing the value of the bridge. Councillor Kirby made mention earlier of the Build Back Better philosophy, and that can be applied in this situation. When considering value for money, the repairs will extend the life of the bridge by 25 years, but a replacement option would provide a 75-year lifespan. The officers have provided details on this in the agenda, and it shows replacing the bridge, given its lifespan of 75 years, would be a cost to council of approximately $3,800 per year, without the need for ongoing maintenance costs, versus repair options that would cost council up to $7,980 per year, with the need for ongoing maintenance for particular structural elements. The motion includes applying to the CCMA for reimbursement of eligible costs, which would help lessen the cost to council. Any shortfall in funding would come from council's bridge renewal and bridge maintenance accounts. This bridge is essential to the people of Inverleigh, and I do applaud the intent of the officer comment in the report that states it's anticipated this work will be funded for delivery in Q3 of the 23-24 financial year, subject to council finding the funding. The Aussie Bridges report actually states that the majority of the bridge is in a reasonable condition, but as the recommended methods for repair requires dismantling of major components, it's a case of 2 steps back to go 1 step forward. Going forward, consultation on the design should include, I would hope, stakeholders such as the Open Space Committee, which are custodians of that area. Yeah, thanks, Mr.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Getson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, yes, Councillor Whitfield has summed it up really wonderful, I think, and I'll be short and sweet. I don't think we need to have a Band-Aid fix. It needs to be fixed properly, once and for all, and the cost is one, and it's not all that much greater than the repairs. Thank you.
Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Campbell, thank you.
Yeah, with this, it's quite clearly a question of replace or make do. And Councillor Whitfield has outlined the issues as in the agenda to the arguments. Do seem to be on the side of replacing, given the increased lifespan of the new bridge in comparison. It's also, I'm glad to see that the money's coming out of that we hopefully can get support for funding the replacement, and also for the taking out of the bridge renewal and maintenance programs too. It is a pretty special bridge and a special place. I'm very familiar with it. Drives along the river there, and you know, there's platypus in that vicinity. It's a really nice place for walks, and community values it highly, particularly as a connecting structure between the common road side of Inverleigh and the main township. Pretty big shortcut, in fact, to get to the shops and the school especially. So the sooner we can get it done, the better for the community in Inverleigh.
Okay. Any other councillor wishing to speak to the motion? If not, I'll ask Councillor Whitfield to close.
Thanks for comments from other councillors there in support of this. The only other point I was going to add, if I needed to, was that I believe in the Inverleigh structure plan panel hearing, it was mentioned as a means of escape should fire come from the north. So it is absolutely, in these days, with the population growth, etc., an essential infrastructure component for the town of Inverleigh. And once again, I do appreciate the urgency under which officers have approached this project. Thanks.
Okay. Councillors on the demonstration to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Councillors, I refer now to agenda item 7.10, 10 for Cox Road and road improvements. Agenda item is listed on page 51. I will take this report as read. Are there any questions to the technical director? If not, can I please ask for a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Gibson. I ask for a second. Recommendation, Councillor Gibson. Councillor Gibson, would you like to speak to the motion, please?
Yes, thank you. I'm well aware of this road. It's a very narrow bitumen road. There's several potholes. It's deteriorated on both sides. If you're driving west, east to west, or west to east, it's a very well used road. It's a detour for trucks that come from Border Plant or Border Pickett Enfield. The trucks go across that way to the Western Highway. It's a road that needs well and truly upgrading. And I noticed it was coming under budget of $1 million, about $931,500. And it's been awarded to our local contractor, Begbie's, which lives in the Shire, of course. I think it's a great one and great work by the officers. Thank you.
Councillor Whitfield, would you like to speak to the motion, please?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to take this opportunity to talk to the tender process that these contracts go through, as we have got 6 tenders come forward tonight. Hopefully I can speak to it once. Yeah, so the local government tender process ensures that all contracts and projects are awarded through an open and competitive bidding system. By doing so, it promotes fair play and equal opportunity for all stakeholders, from established companies to small local business, encouraging healthy competition that drives innovation and cost effectiveness. Furthermore, this process emphasises accountability. Each decision is subject to scrutiny, ensuring that public funds are utilised wisely and responsibly. The rigorous evaluation and selection process ensures that the winning bids are not just based on promise, but on merit, experience and track record. As a result, the public can trust finances are being used as efficiently as possible. This one, this contract, Mr. Mayor, as with a few others coming up, has been elevated to where it needs to be progressed through the renewal schedules and identified through condition assessments that are done periodically by the infrastructure team. And then the schedules are updated accordingly. So these roads, projects, etc., that are coming up tonight have risen to the top through a proper process. Yeah, I think I'll just mention council that gets some local knowledge of it was very handy, so I don't need to talk to the actual job, but well done to Becky's contracting for winning the job. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any councillor wishing to speak against the motion? Seeing as no councillors wishing to speak against the motion, I'll now put the motion to vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Agenda item 7.11, tender for Cape Clear Road Junction road improvements. I refer councillors to page 55 of this recommendation of the report, which I'll take as read. Are there any questions to the applicable director? If not, can I please ask for a move to this motion? Councillor Gibson, thank you. Can I please ask for a second for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Whitfield. Councillor Gibson, would you like to speak to the motion, please?
Yes, thank you. I'll make it short and sweet too, because it's, as Councillor Whitfield says, it's local knowledge. I'm well aware of this road, from Cape Clear towards Rokewood. We've already spent some money on the hill widening a couple of years ago, which was greatly needed. It was a very narrow bitumen road again, which is only a 1 car width. So I'm glad to see this taking shape, as the shoulders of the road are very sharp and deep, and it's a risk of having an accident on that road. I use it travelling all the time to to Pennyburn, of course, so and many others do too. So I'm glad to see this project going ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Whitfield, would you like to speak to the motion?
Should council resolve to pass this motion, congrats to Fulton Hogan Industries.
Thank you. Any councillors wishing to speak against the motion? Seeing as no councillors wishing to speak against this motion, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Councillors, agenda item 7.12 in relationship to a tender for Lincoln Road Figure Reef Bridge replacement. I refer you to agenda page number 60 for this report, which I'll take as. Do I have any questions to the applicable director regarding this item? If not, can I please ask for a mover for this motion? Councillor Gibson. Can I ask for a seconder, please? Councillor Kirby, thank you. Councillor Jepson, would you like to speak to this motion, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This bridge was washed away in the last flood, and the replacement culverts that were done. This will be the third attempt to put a bridge across this creek. The last two having failed, both lots of culverts. By putting a bridge in, it will allow a greater stream of water to flow unrestricted under the bridge. As we are getting some big floods, we don't have a big storm event at this stage anymore to have a good flood in the Wodiallic. It seems with housing developments and more up north, it seems to be creating a lot more water coming down. We have a lot of debris in the creek, which we're not allowed to remove, unfortunately. So there's a couple of big trees already about to come down again as well, I think. So, and again here, this bridge tender could be awarded to Fulton Hogan Industries. So I would like to actually see this bridge opened up as quick as possible, because our detours are not the best. So we need to get some action ASAP. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kirby would like to speak to this motion. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, thank you, Councillor Getson. I think your local knowledge of this bridge is well appreciated, because we know that this is the third time, and as you stated, that by building an actual bridge without having culverts underneath it, it means there's going to be more flow of water. So hopefully it doesn't bring the bridge down again. So we look forward to this going ahead and being fixed, and hopefully it will last another 50 to 100 years.
Mr. Mayor, can I just add to that? I'd like to also thank the directors, Yusufovic and Vicky Shelton, also because they pushed to get a bridge instead of culverts, so they had a great insight to save the council and ratepayers money. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any councillors wishing to speak against this motion? Would you like to speak for it? Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Getson. Also noting this area has a history of dramatic flash flooding. I remember like the damage done to Devil's Kitchen. I don't know, it's like probably over 15 years ago, but it seemed to take 5 or 10 years to get it repaired. It's a pretty special part of our shire too. It's got a real sense of bit of wildness there with the Devil's Kitchen and St. Peregrine Falcons flying around there. It's also an important bridge and road as a sort of a crossroad between two areas. And so it will be great to see this built back better. Thanks.
Any councillors wishing to speak against the motion? Seeing there's no councillors wishing to speak against the motion, I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Councillors? What's happening, isn't it? Councillors, are referring to agenda item 7.13, which is in regards to tender for the reconstruction of Wellington Oval. Information regarding to employees on page 64 of the agenda, which I will take as read. Are there any questions for the applicable council director? If not, can I please ask for a councillor to move this motion? Councillor Gibson, thank you. Can I ask for a seconder? Councillor Whitfield, thank you. Councillor Gibson would like to speak to this motion, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This oval is I believe, is the last oval in the Shire to be upgraded. Thank you, Mr. CEO. I thought I'd be right in that statement. We've had on the one of the pockets is like a lake, a fair bit of the year round. We've been unable to run school sports there a couple of times. They've had to be shifted because they're known as the Lincoln District School Sports. So they have not been able to have them at the oval. Some cricket matches have had to be shifted away as well, and also some football matches have been away as well. So I think with this contract of 1.2 million, there's a lot to be done, and I think the tender for global turf projects, I think it's a wise one by the infrastructure department for selecting this company, as they are well renowned for ovals all over Victoria, that I'm aware of. So I'd be happy to see this take place and go ahead with reshaping the surface, the drainage, which is needs to be done for a long time, new goalposts, which would be great, a new hard centre cricket wicket, and new coaching boxes. So yeah, looking forward to seeing this take place. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Councillor Whitfield would like to speak to the motion, please.
Just to add, Mr. Mayor, that this tender has come through partly delayed due to seasonal requirements, and there was a hold off on applying for some funding until that funding opportunity came through properly. So this is actually, I think, a carryover project from last year's budget, as are most of the tenders coming through tonight, except for the Piggery Bridge, which was through flooding emergency. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Any councillors wishing to speak against this motion? Councillor Singh, sorry, Councillor Coogan, see your hand, you'd like to speak to the motion, thank you.
Probably something against it.
Against the motion.
I just, I'm really for this project, but the thing is, we did spend a lot of money on the Linton Reserve, putting a sprinkler system in an irrigation quite a few years ago now, probably about 4 or 5 years ago. So I think it's a shame when it might be even a little bit longer, maybe 6 years ago, and I think we did everything back to front. We should have fixed the ground, then put the irrigation down afterwards. So we've done, at that time, we put the irrigation down, but we didn't complete the surface. So I just hate wasting money when it comes to this, these sort of projects. And I just hope we learn from this, and this time we'll do the job properly. We're doing the ground, fixing it up, because as we know, we do have big puddles and, a lot of wetness on that east side of the ground. So I just hopefully in the future we learn and we don't have to go back to this ground in the future, and then we'll fix it up. Thank you.
Councillor Gibson would like to close.
Sorry,
Councillor Gibson.
Sorry.
Dan would like to speak to the motion.
Yeah, just to note that it is an important oval for the community further west than Linton too, and also gets overflow from Ballarat and it's used for a number of sports there. The actual oval, I had doubts about the wisdom of spending all this money on drainage, given the overall climate change sort of scenario growing out of environment. But that said, I have learned to appreciate that this actual oval was built on a natural swamp area to start with, and some might say the footballers are getting a bit soft these days, but I will put up with the mud. But they've had to call off whole rounds of games there and things because the ground is so unused, basically unusable, and so yeah, given that we should also be thanking Catherine King for her election commitment of 780,000, which is by far the bulk of the funding that made this possible, and Sport and Rec Victoria kicking in 200,000, and we're putting in a not small amount of $445,000. So this is a real investment in the Linton community area, the Linton community and the sport in that area. So yeah, I hope it all goes really well and there aren't further problems down the track.
Councillor Gibson would like to close.
Just briefly, Mr Mayor, we have a great big water tank at Linton now, which does supply water to the area if required. We're also very fortunate that we've got a reservoir just up the highway, which is gravity fed. So we don't have any water problems whatsoever, any burdens like that going. So, yeah, that sort of thing.
And councillors, I'll now put this motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. Councillors, we go to agenda item 7.14, tender for panel supplies plumbing maintenance services. Agenda's reports on page 68. I'll take the report as read. Are there any questions for the applicant director? If not, can I please ask for a mover of this motion, recommendation? Councillors, can I ask for a mover? Councillor Whitfield, I appreciate that. Can I ask for a second? Councillor Kirby. Thank you very much. Councillor Whitfield, would like to speak to the motion, please.
Just briefly, thanks, Mr Mayor. So this is, well, firstly I'll move the recommendation as the motion. So the motion is to award the contract to Plumbing Logistics Proprietary Limited. It's to cover, they cover a wide range of services that council require, maintenance services. It's been through the same rigorous tender process. Plumbing Logistics came out on top. So I look forward to them completing their maintenance work. Thanks, Mr.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kirby, would like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, just to clarify, that this is a panel of contractors going that will be working within the Shire. So we'll have contractors from both ends, the north and the south, to which makes sense because you don't want to be paying someone from the travelling from the south all the way to the north and vice versa. So it's just good to have these on board, and hopefully if we have any problems in the Shire that it can be dealt with pretty quickly, especially in emergency. Thank you.
Any councillors wishing to speak against the motion? Seeing there's not, I'll put the motion to vote. All those in favour? Thank you, carried. What the other thing is?
One more thing.
Councillors, agenda item 7.15, tender for panel of suppliers for general maintenance services. Councillors, I refer you to page 71 of the recommendation. Are there any questions for the technical director? If not, can I please ask for a mover for this recommendation, councillors? Councillor Kirby, thank you. Can I ask for a seconder? Councillor Getson, thank you. Councillor Kirby would like to speak to the motion. Thank you.
Yes, I think this is very good for the maintenance services of Burton Culture Limited, acting as Dolls Cleaning Services and Mr. T at Work and Miss Target Group. I have seen some of the work done by Dolls Cleaning Services. I know we know the cleaners of the Shire, the public toilets and areas. They did a fantastic job, and Working actually did a lot of maintenance work in that area as well as they were going. So if something needed fixing, they were on board. So I think this will be a good group of businesses that will be working in our Shire and will keep everything up to scratch.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Getson, would you like to speak to the motion, please?
Yes, I support Councillor Kirby's remarks. Thank you.
If there are any councillors wishing to speak against the motion? If not, I'll put the motion to vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Council's agenda item 7.16, council support and expense policy for adoption. I refer councillors to page 74 for the recommendation for this report. I will take the report as read. Are there any questions for the applicable council director? If not, can I please ask for a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Sharkey, thank you. Can I please ask for a councillor to be second the motion? Councillor Whitfield, thank you. Councillor Sharkey, would you like to speak to the motion, please?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much. Yeah, we've gone through an extensive process on this. We've had some really good discussions, debates on it in terms of briefing days. Brought it to councillor, brought it to a briefing there. I raised the issue that this is something that I would like to go for public consultation. It's gone out for public consultation. We haven't received any public submissions there, but it's nice for us to have done that, go through, go stand before the community and say, look, we put that to the community. It was advertised out there. They had every opportunity to make a submission. So we've gone through, we've ticked all the boxes there. This is a document that will come before us again and again over councillors' journeys, and trying to make sure that, I suppose from my perspective, looking at this, I'm looking at this document not so much as how can this make us as a group better. I've looked at this as in how can this help and aid somebody that's thinking about getting on council in the next term. There's been some pretty good conversations across the state. I know through the MAD there was a good few issues tabled there in terms of trying to get some of these parts of this right to help encourage particular female candidates there. I really appreciate the work that I did with governance, in particular the author of this, Rosie, who did a fantastic job putting this together. But I'd just like to acknowledge that I challenged Rosie, had some really good conversations on this in terms of what other councillors are doing, benchmarking off them, but trying to specifically try and find some elements that we may be able to pick out of other councils or put into embed in this that will help female candidates in the next election or the next process. we're not there yet. There's a lot of things here that are covered to help anyone standing for council and help. And we have renamed and rebadged the actual document itself now by calling it the support and expenses policy as opposed to council expenses. So there's some nice little changes there. This is really good. This is something that's no doubt will come before us in years to come and make some changes there. But again, I'd just like to acknowledge the work that was done there and the hearing that I got in terms of trying to do a few things there. So thank you very much.
Councillor Sharkey. Councillor Whitfield, would you like to speak to this motion, please?
No, councillor Sharkey covered all bases there.
Thank you. Any councillors wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Gamble, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'd also like to acknowledge the ongoing work that's been put into this document. And even going out for a community engagement. This is a document that will have to be revisited, in my opinion, because there's just it's a changing landscape with the whole transport emissions, the cost to society sort of angle. It's really these sort of things have really been brought home with the off the scale events happening around the planet at the moment, particularly in the northern hemisphere. Going forward, I'd like to see inclusion of things like the facility for reimbursement and incentives for using electric vehicles, and also at the moment this document gives incentive for people to drive in their single cars to right across the Shire at 70 and to be reimbursed at 72 cents per kilometre, I think it is. But I've just more recently had some other calculations to give you an idea. That 72 cents a kilometre doesn't include the 21 cents a kilometre cost to society as well. That's what it's estimated. Whereas if I ride my bike, it's been calculated that it's actually you're actually saving 22 cents per kilometre to society. These sort of calculations need to be included to give the right sort of incentives and disincentives for the way we travel and move around the Shire. And also, it would be great to see our council adopt electric vehicles as soon as possible, especially now we've got a charging station in Meredith and hopefully a lot more to come. Because we do have to have quite a mobile workforce. The officers, a lot of them do a lot of travelling and they spend a lot of time in their cars just to, as they should, to get around the Shire, because that's just the nature of the beast that we've got, the way we're structured. So I think it's especially becometh on us to do the best we can with getting our emissions and transport more future looking. Thank you.
Any other councillor wishes to speak for the motion? Councillor Kirby, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thanks, Councillor Gamble. I think you've taken on board some really good initiatives that we can look to for the future, and especially when it comes to charging electric bikes. We do have quite a few electric bikes around the Shire that people ride, and really we don't have any charging stations for them. So I'm not sure if they connect in with automotive ones. I don't think so. You'll have to force him. Thank you.
Yeah. Any councillor?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to probably just mention that we don't have enough here. I'd like to see one in Smysley because we're stuck between two cities, Ballarat and Hamilton, and there's a lot of tourists starting to get a better going. But there is some in Ballarat. There's probably 4 or 5 new stock vans, but a lot of people bypass all that. So I think maybe out here in our Shire we could lead the way. We've got any further Meredith, and one here would be really terrific, I think. Thank you.
Any councillor wishes to speak against the motion? If not, I'll ask Councillor Sharkey to close.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just acknowledging that this is the councillor support and expenses policy that we're discussing here. We did dive into a couple of things there, and I know Councillor Gamble brought up a couple of things to try and put some green initiatives in this or embed in this. I think it's quite nice looking at some of those councils. As the report sort of says, there were 2,703 kilometres squared, as opposed to some of these councils that are able to do this, such as Darebin, which is 54 kilometres squared. So it is quite easier for them to do those things. If someone wants to go off and buy, if a councillor wants to buy an electric car, charge it up, you're still able to charge 70 odd cents or whatever it is. So yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, that we tried to do something in that space. It is quite difficult in our Shire. It's not as easy as some other Melbourne-based councils that are able to do that. But I think as Councillor Gamble said there, and I totally agree that this document will come back before us at some stage in the future, and we'll mould into something as we go along. But again, I personally looked at this at the lens of how can we make it easier for the next council, as opposed to how can we make this better for myself. So that's good. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Sharkey. Councillors on that. As we have a notice of motion 8.1, notice of motion public transport service for Australian Bannockburn as well.
Agrees. Paperwork.
I'll need a second, sorry. Second that. Good. All in favour? Time, so it's 7:57. So we'll come back. 8:02. 8:02. Okay.
Remembering the live stream continues.
Thank you. Thank you, councillors, we're back. Notice motion 041, notice motion public transport services between Councillor Gamble, you have a motion you want to move, I guess, please introduce the motion indicating its intent and all the desired outcomes. Thank you.
To begin with the wording of the proposed motion, is that Golden Plains Shire Council right within the next 4 weeks to relevant state government politicians and public officers to convey the community's high level of dissatisfaction with the current public transport service between Bannockburn and Geelong, and to seriously consider the implementation of a more accessible and frequent bus service.
Thank you. Councillors, I intend to second this motion as a councillor. I'm not in my position as the chair of the meeting in order to enable discussion. Councillor Gamble, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. This motion is born out of listening to the community with when I've been to places like a lot of my boys and their friends, and also the P12 Bannockburn School, 2 or 3 times last year. Then this was a high item in their agenda that they wanted to have access or accessibility to get into Geelong, basically. Also, I've spoken to older people and people with disabilities that have problems with using the current service. As a coach service, it's very hard to get on and off. And apart from that, the reasons I have there for the proposed motion, it's hard to summarise them because there's a number of different reasons, and I've written them, I believe, quite comprehensively with the arguments, basically that we're a very high growing area. We, particularly young families and kids that need that transport, the connection into the services, work and social and leisure opportunities that the regional centre of Geelong offers. There are many young people who feel frustrated and isolated, and it's one of their top priorities for them living in Bannockburn that they have that better connection into Geelong. I think if this was implemented, it would significantly improve the quality of life for many of our citizens in the southern and central part of Golden Plains Shire. I say the central part too because I know from personal experience that there are many, I know quite a handful of families that have been in Teesdale, but they've moved back to Geelong because they got sick of all the car faring back and forth. And if we just had a spine service from a town like Teesdale and even further out, Shelford, Beaufort, etc., that would allow people to at least not have to drive all the way into Geelong, but just get them into Bannockburn, and then the kids could, or whoever it is, could use the public transport system to get into Geelong in a reliable fashion and be able to see movies and things like that, which the current system doesn't allow that to happen. So that's why I think it would be, why it's important for an implementation of a better system to happen, for more frequent and accessible bus service between Bannockburn and Geelong would be a great thing in our community.
Thank you. As a second of the motion, I'll observe my right to speak. Mr. Townsend, is there an opportunity for questions? Sarah, yes. Certainly, thanks.
I just had one. I just hadn't heard the term before. Councillor Gamble's spine service. Explain to me what that is.
Well, that's, I wrote there, additionally, growth towns such as Teesdale, with no public transport, and Inverleigh, Friday only, would benefit from at least having a spine service from Bannockburn, and thereby relieve parents or carers or friends and family members from having to drive the full distance into Geelong. By spine service, I mean, it's not realistic that we have the numbers and the demand to have a bus service right out to Teesdale. In the best world, that might happen. But at least if we have that basic service in between the main population growth, that's what I call the spine service, because it's the key sort of, thank you, trouble with.
ask you a question?
Certainly.
The motion asks that we write a letter to state government politicians. What is or who is public officers? Like when we write to public officers, who what's the example of that, or who's that public officers?
Well, I think in this case, I've left that open because I don't know the exact level of officer you speak to, but I imagine it'd be like bureaucrats, chiefs in Department of Transport, for example. People who run the bus services as well.
Even the train.
Council, any council wishes to speak to the motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, myself being a former wheelline driver, I do agree with Councillor Gamble's statement there, the senior and disabled physical people struggling with wheelline coaches. They are not designed for short travel because they travel from Ballarat to Geelong, so you normally run a larger style coach, which these are. To have a wheelchair access bus, you would have to have a low profile floor to cater for that, and they have a ramp that they put out as well, so that might help you understand that little bit there. So, and they have facilities for strapping wheelchairs in as well. Thank you.
Okay. Any other councillors wishing to speak to the motion? Councillor Chuggy.
Yeah, thanks very much. I appreciate the comments that have been made, but please read the motion. The motion asks that we write. We're going to write a letter to a politician. I won't be supporting this motion. I fully support all the comments that both Councillor Gamble and Councillor Getson have made with regards to public transport. You won't meet anyone on the side that will disagree with what's being said there. Councillor Gamble made the comments there. If this is implemented, we're not implementing anything. We're just asking to write a letter to politicians. I fully endorse these comments in strategic documents that have come before us. We have our priority projects booklet. This is embedded in this. We're going to ask the Mayor to write a letter to politicians to be spoken to in the last 4 and 8 weeks. The Mayor has literally met with the Premier in the last couple of weeks and has presented the integrated transport strategy that's by G21. It's embedded in the G21 document that we need more public transport. We spoke about the way in which we're lobbying, the way we have lobbied. This is not the way to lobby. Right now, this motion is asking the Mayor to write a letter. The Mayor doesn't need our permission. It's embedded in everything, and we can simply write. The Mayor, if he wishes, can simply write to any state government politician or whatever at any stage. It doesn't need our permission. I'm not going to support this for the simple fact that I do not want to see, I prefer not to see motions like this come each and every meeting, whether it's this month bus transport, next month it's something else. And extremely mindful that in 12 months' time is an election, and this is a platform in which people can use to put forward things. If the Mayor of the day, and I did as Mayor, and mayors before me, and every Mayor after me has always sat down with politicians, put that priority booklet, and I can guarantee you that each and every Mayor, public transport is probably the top 2 or 3 things when you speak to any politician. That is when advocacy needs to happen. It's going to be pretty embarrassing if we write a letter now to a politician who the Mayor met with 3 or 4 weeks ago and say, well, I just heard from you say that 3 or 4 weeks ago. I just don't think that this is the way that we should be lobbying. I think it sets a precedence into the future that I just don't think is right. We've spoken about public transport, don't get me wrong. No one will argue against that. No one doesn't believe what Councillor Gamble is saying and that it is a need. My 3 kids ask me each and every day, I want more public transport, I want to get into the movies, do all those things. This is not what the motion's about. Let's be strategic. We have our priority booklets, we have the transport strategies, we have our own transport strategies. Front page of the Geelong Addy yesterday was all about this transport. It's all out. We don't need to write a letter. You don't need permission from us. Mr. Mayor, if you want to write a letter, go and write one tomorrow. You do not need our permission. So I just don't understand why we're doing why we're
putting this up to something you don't need our permission to do so.
Councillor Shaggy. The other councillors wish to speak against the motion? Right, councillor. Speak for the motion. Thank you, councillor.
Thank you. I totally get where councillor Gamble's coming from. We have been spending years after years after years trying to fight for public transport in this shire. How many studies and strategies have we done where the residents have told us they want a consistent public transport mode in and out of Geelong, from Bannockburn, at least Bannockburn to Geelong, whether it can connect from Teesdale, Bannockburn, and as Councillor Gamble said, is the spine network that can, you have one hub and then it spreads out. Yes, it's in our strategy book, but at the end of the day, are they listening? Why don't we just have to keep pumping and pumping and pumping them until we can get something? We've said it'd be fantastic to have the rail back on from Ballarat to Geelong. We had the perfect opportunity when Commonwealth Games was coming, but was anyone listening? No, they weren't listening. I think it was this weekend or next weekend, they're having the train going through, the old steam train going through from Geelong to Ballarat. Now, wouldn't it be practical just to put a passenger line on there so our residents can go to work, catch a train, and not have to have their cars all the time? We're just sick of being guinea pigs all the time. We have to get it out there. We have to speak to the Transport Minister. We have to speak to Big Roads. We have to, speak to the bus companies and say, what are you going to do to help service our residents? Too long. The kids of our shire have had it too hard, and yes, we've got a big population in Bannockburn now. But don't forget, we've got 1,500 residents in Teesdale as well. And those kids are really busting we can't even build a pathway to the high school from Teesdale to Bannockburn. That's been, 13 years in the making. Surely we can do that for ourselves, but we can also advocate for public transport in our shire as well. We've just got to get harder. And if we don't, we'll be advocating for the movie picture theatres to come to us and the pools to come to us. So it's going to be bigger dollars in the long run.
Councillor, any other councillors wishing to speak to the motion? Councillor Whitfield, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I as Councillor Sharkey said, I do fall back onto the motion, which is it's just a letter, and being just a letter, we're not overextending our resources or anything to do with it. I take Councillor Sharkey's point that it's in our strategic documents that are presented. But so far, we haven't had success through those strategic channels. And, sometimes strong repeated advocacy is required. It's a case of if you don't ask, you don't receive. Councillor Gamble and others have spoken here that the justification for a bus service there and the rationale is there. So an extra push to the pollies is fine with me. And we can't improve that public transport without government support. So we do need to advocate strongly, and I think it's a very community-minded motion, and I'm okay with support. Thanks.
Councillor Gamble, would you like to close?
Okay, thank you, councillors and Mayor. I just note that Councillor Sharkey's comments make me feel somewhat that I don't really have the right to represent my residents to some extent, because bringing this forward as a notice of motion, asking for unity with the councillor group is a way of signalling to politicians and bureaucrats that this is a significant issue in our community, and it is something that we consider worthy of a priority, addressing as a priority for our community. And doing that as a group, we're also perhaps we're directing the mayor. The mayor's not individually responsible for how we behave as a group like that, and I'm sure he'll respect our direction. But it's also, should note in G21, I don't think we're going counter G21. I think we're actually supporting the recommendations that are in the integrated transport strategy from G21, which for everybody's benefit just came out yesterday. It's on the G21 website. It's a great document. That's just a short version. So I commend this motion to all. Sorry. I'll leave it there and ask that we can adopt this as a council group, because it's obviously quite important for our residents.
Thank you. I now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried.
Could I ask for a
Division?
division, please?
Councillors, all those in favour? Councillor Cunningham, Councillor Kirby, Councillor Getson, Councillor Whitfield, Councillor Campbell. Councillors, those against? Councillor Sharkey, Councillor Rowe. Thank you. Councillors, agenda item number 9, petitions. Neil, we now move to item 10, item for tabling. We have an item for tabling this evening. No motion is required for tabling of documents, and there will be no debate on this item. In accordance with section 1474 of the Local Government Act 2020, the Arbiter's decision and statement of reasons on the matter of an application by myself, Councillor Cunningham, concerning Councillor Rowe, this table will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. In accordance with the arbitrator's decision and statement of reasons, a written apology from Councillor Rowe to council staff is also taken. Councillors, we move on to urgent business, which is nil. Confidential reports and decisions. There are confidential items for consideration tonight. These items are considered confidential as defined in section 3 of the Local Government Act. Can I please have a council to move a motion for the meeting to be closed to the public to consider this confidential business? Councillor Getson, seconded by Councillor Kirby. I'll put the motion, put the vote to the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. I'll now ask members of the gallery to leave the meeting so the meeting can consider the confidential matters. The live stream will also cease at this time. Thank you for joining us tonight.
I suppose we should